I never paid much attention to the west wing of our school. It was just there. The hallway that led to it was sealed with a heavy wooden door and a small chain, as if to quietly say, "Don't bother." The janitors didn't go near it, teachers never mentioned it, and students turned it into a sort of running joke. They'd tell new kids it was cursed, that someone once went in and never came out. I always figured it was just storage or some old facility no one needed anymore. That changed in the third week of my final year. We had a new transfer student, Anna. She wasn't shy, but she was curious. The kind of curious that makes adults nervous and teens interested. On her second day, she asked why one of the school corridors was locked off. No one gave her a straight answer. Some people joked. Others warned her to stay away. I told her it was probably just boring storage stuff. She raised an eyebrow and grinned like she already didn't believe me. That same day, Anna dared herself to get closer. We were walking past the west wing when she broke off and headed toward the chain door. "It's just a hallway," she said, tugging on the rusted handle. I warned her not to mess with it, that maybe it really was dangerous or had some legal reason for being closed. But Anna didn't listen. Instead, she placed her ear against the door and went still. "I think I heard something," she whispered. Like, whispering. That night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't the first time someone said they heard something behind that door. But hearing it again, from someone who hadn't even been here long, made it feel different. More real. I remembered a story my older cousin told me, about a janitor who disappeared back in the 90s. Apparently, his keys were found near the west wing, and no one saw him again. The school buried it, and the story faded like a rumor. But what if there was some truth to it? The next day, Anna brought a flashlight and a lockpick set. I don't know where she got them or how she knew how to use them, but she seemed prepared. I didn't want to go with her, but I also didn't want her to go alone. Curiosity has a strange pull when you're young and bored. So I followed her after school, when most of the staff were gone. We snuck past the stairwell and into the shadowed hallway, stopping in front of that sealed door. "Last chance to back out," she smirked. My heart was pounding. The lights flickered above us like some cliché horror movie. But this was real. This was our school, our hallway. Not a set, not a story. I stayed silent, and Anna took it as a green light. She fiddled with the lock for a minute, then the chain dropped with a quiet clank. The door groaned open like it hadn't been moved in years. The air that hit us was stale, like an old cellar. The hallway beyond was dusty and dim. Broken lockers lined the walls, and faded posters from the 1980s still clung to the cracked paint. There was no electricity, just the weak beam of Anna's flashlight leading the way. Every step echoed like we were disturbing something that had been asleep for a long time. "This place looks like time forgot it," I muttered, hugging my backpack tightly. Anna laughed, but it didn't sound confident. We walked deeper until the hallway split. One path led to a small classroom with chairs stacked oddly in the corners. The other led to a janitor's closet. The door to it was slightly open, even though no one had supposedly entered this part of the building in years. Anna walked toward it, ignoring my whisper-shouted warnings. "What if someone's living here?" I asked. "What if it's not ghosts, but like a squatter or something?" She didn't answer. She just pushed the door open and stepped in. I hesitated, then followed. Inside, it was almost empty, except for a mop, a broken flashlight, and a photo. It was old, dusty, and curled at the edges. It showed a janitor and a few students, all smiling. One of the students looked exactly like Anna. I froze. "Anna, this looks like you." She took the photo, eyes wide. "That's not possible," she said. "This is dated 1992. We stood in stunned silence. It was impossible, right? A trick of the light, maybe? A coincidence? But then Anna turned the photo over. In looping pen ink was a message. "To my favorite helper, Anna, never forget what we found." She dropped the photo like it burned. I couldn't breathe. Suddenly, being curious didn't feel exciting. It felt dangerous. Very, very dangerous. We didn't talk on the way home. The photo sat between us like a ghost, even though we'd left it behind. I kept replaying that moment, Anna's face when she read the message. It wasn't just confusion, it was recognition. Like something buried in her brain had surfaced for half a second before she shut it down. I tried to ask her later what she was thinking, but she dodged the question with a laugh and changed the subject. But I knew she hadn't forgotten, and neither had I. That night, my dreams were loud. Not vivid, just loud. Footsteps in endless hallways, chains dragging across tile, someone whispering my name over and over like a broken record. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of something scratching against my window. When I looked, there was nothing there, but I swear the air felt heavier, like something had followed me home. My phone lit up suddenly with a message from Anna. Did you dream about it too? The next day at school, something was off. The air felt colder in the halls, and the lights above the West Wing flickered nonstop. People started noticing, even the teachers. One of them joked it was just the building settling, but no one looked convinced. I overheard a girl in the bathroom say she saw a janitor she didn't recognize mopping the floor at sunrise. When she blinked, he was gone. Her voice was shaking like she was trying to pretend it wasn't real. Anna wanted to go back. I didn't. But she showed up to school with the photo again. Look closer, she said, pointing at the bottom edge. There was a number scratched faintly in the paper. 317. The same time I woke up the night before. That's not a coincidence, she whispered. Something's calling us back. I asked her why she even cared. Because I think I've been here before, she said quietly. Not just this school, that wing, that room. I didn't want to believe her, but then she pulled out an old yearbook from 1992. Found it in the library's archive room, she said. Inside were the usual awkward photos and cheesy slogans. But then I turned to the staff section and froze. There he was, the janitor. The same face from the photo. Same mustache, same kind eyes. Mr. Halbrook, it said beneath his picture. The same name from the urban legend, the one who supposedly disappeared. Except here, he looked alive, like he never left. That afternoon, we went back. We waited until last bell, until the halls emptied out and silence claimed the school like a second skin. We snuck down the west corridor again, hearts pounding in sync. The hallway was colder now. The dust seemed disturbed, like someone, or something, had been walking through recently. The janitor closet was open again. Inside, the photo was gone. But something new had been left in its place. A cassette tape labeled only "Play Me." Against every instinct I had, Anna pocketed it and whispered, "My house after dark?" I nodded, even though everything inside me was screaming not to go. That night, I biked over in the dark. Her house was weirdly quiet. No music, no TV. Just her sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at an old cassette player. "Let's just hear it," she said, and pressed play. Static buzzed. Then, a voice. Male, calm, tired. "Anna, if you're hearing this, you've come too far." The voice continued, unraveling a strange, scrambled story. It spoke of a discovery beneath the school. Something ancient. Something trapped. Mr. Halbrook talked about opening a door that should have stayed closed. About students who vanished. About memories wiped and rewritten. "They don't want the truth to spread," he said. "They'll erase you if you get too close." I looked at Anna. Her hands were shaking. He's talking to me like I knew him. Then the tape glitched and we both flinched. A distorted sound screeched through the speakers, followed by silence. But just before the tape ended, there was one final sentence. "You were supposed to forget, Anna." The power flickered. Her bedroom light dimmed, then surged back. "That's enough," I said. "We're done." But Anna stared at the player like it held her soul, I think I was part of this, she whispered. I think I was there. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept chewing on the impossible. A photo from 1992, a girl born in 2007, a janitor who disappeared. Either we were losing it, or something truly wrong had been buried under this school. Not just physically, psychically. And now that we'd opened the door, I was starting to wonder if it could ever be shut again. Over the weekend, Anna changed. Not in a dramatic horror movie way, but in the subtler, scarier way. Like she wasn't all there. She'd zone out mid-sentence, like buffering through thoughts that weren't hers. Once I caught her staring at the school's floor plan on her phone, fingers tracing that West Wing hallway again and again. When I asked what she was doing, she said, "Looking for something, but I don't know what it is yet." That sentence messed me up for days. Sunday night, I had a dream. Not the weird scattered ones, but a memory. Except it wasn't mine. I was in the West Wing, younger, wearing a uniform I've never worn. There were 3 other kids, and Anna was one of them. Except she looked smaller, different haircut. Her voice sounded higher, but the way she looked at me felt exactly the same. "We shouldn't have touched the lock," she whispered. Then a shadow passed over us, and I woke up choking on air like someone had pressed a pillow to my face. I didn't tell her. I figured if she wasn't ready to talk, I'd wait. But Monday morning, she cornered me outside homeroom, eyes bloodshot and intense. "I remembered a name last night," she said. "Devin Callister. I think he was one of us." That name meant nothing to me, until she pulled out a photocopied list from the 1992 school year. Devin's name was there, circled in red. "He died," she whispered. "Says it was an accident, but I think that's a lie." I started doing my own digging, not just through records, but through people. I tracked down Ms. Chen, one of the oldest teachers still working at the school. Told her I was doing a history project. When I brought up the West Wing, she paused for a little too long. "They closed that hallway for asbestos," she said, then looked me dead in the eyes. "But that's not why they bricked it up." I asked her what she meant. She just said, "Some doors aren't meant to be opened twice." Later that day, Anna called me from the bathroom, whispering like she was being watched. "There's something else," she said. "I found another recording in the ceiling of my closet." I biked over again. Her face was pale, hair tied up in a messy bun like she hadn't slept. The tape was short, a girl's voice. "If they find this, I'm gone." We opened it. We weren't supposed to. It feeds on memory. It rewrites you. Her voice cracked. "I think it's eating Devin first." We both sat in silence for a long time. The idea that something could consume memory like food made me feel sick. Was that why Anna had moments where she'd blank out? Were those gaps in her brain leftovers from this thing? What if I had some too and didn't even know? I looked at my hands and thought, how much of me is me, and how much has already been chewed up and erased? What if that's what happened to the kids from 92? That night, we agreed on something we never said out loud. We had to go deeper. So we waited until after midnight, broke into the school through the music room window, and made our way to the west corridor. The brick sealing the hallway had started to crack. Not like normal wear and tear, more like something was pushing from the inside. Anna ran her fingers over the mortar. "It's soft," she said, like something melted it. Her voice didn't even shake. We brought bolt cutters and a flashlight. Behind one of the old lockers, we found a vent with loose screws. We took turns crawling through the shaft, scraping our knees and barely breathing. On the other side was a room neither of us had ever seen. It wasn't part of any school blueprint. Inside were lockers, burned books, and a desk covered in melted candles. And in the center, etched into the floor, was a symbol we'd never seen before. A circle with 3 eyes. "I've seen this before," Anna said, voice barely above a whisper. "In my drawings, ones I don't remember making." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her sketchbook. Sure enough, Page after page of that same symbol, sometimes surrounded by fire, sometimes buried under hands reaching up from the floor. "I think this place is trying to talk to me," she said. "And I think it's been doing it for a long time." That was when the door slammed shut behind us. We bolted to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Not like it was locked, more like it wasn't a door anymore. Just a wall where a door used to be. Then the air changed, got warmer, heavier. We heard footsteps behind us, slow and deliberate. Anna turned pale. "This is what happened last time," she whispered. "This is how it starts. The thing about being trapped in a room that shouldn't exist is that your brain starts questioning everything. Your body, your thoughts, your memories." Anna was pacing in circles, her breathing shallow, like she was trying not to hyperventilate. I sat on the floor, trying to piece together what just happened, but the edges of my mind felt glitched, like someone had used a digital eraser on parts of my thoughts. "How long have we been in here?" I asked. "I think it's longer than it feels." There was no phone signal. Of course there wasn't. This room felt like it existed in a dead zone, like we were technically still inside the school, but not on the same timeline anymore. I don't know how else to explain it. The temperature dropped by degrees so slowly that we didn't even notice it until our breaths started to fog. That's when the lights began to flicker. Not overhead lights, because there weren't any, but the candles on the desk, which we never lit, flared on by themselves. I don't know what freaked me out more. The fact that the flames burned blue, or the fact that the shadows they cast didn't match us. One of them was taller than me. One was crawling. Anna noticed it too and whispered, "They're not mirrors. They're memory stains." I asked her what she meant, but she was already crouched beside the symbol on the floor again, tracing its lines like it was a puzzle she was close to solving. Her hands were trembling, but she didn't stop. "What if this isn't a haunting?" she said suddenly. "But a backup drive?" I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Like, what if this room is saving the versions of us that the outside world forgets? It sounded insane, but deep down, something about it clicked. What if that's why no one remembers Devin? What if this place took the parts of him that didn't survive the official story and stored them here? What if we were next? We explored the room further, found a cracked mirror tucked behind a broken filing cabinet. It didn't reflect our faces, only our backs. And behind us, standing just out of reach, was the silhouette of a kid in a soaked hoodie. Devin? Maybe. We turned around instantly. Nothing. But the mirror kept showing him. Every time we blinked, he was closer. Anna finally threw her flashlight at it and shattered the glass. And then, suddenly, the air shifted again. The wall where the door used to be started to ripple, like literal static. And out of nowhere, there was a sound. A whisper. But it wasn't a voice. It was like the idea of a voice translated directly into your head. It said only one word. Return. We looked at each other. Return what? I asked out loud, but there was no answer. Just the sense that something expected something from us, that if we didn't return it, we wouldn't leave. Anna pulled out the tape she found at home, the one with the girl's message. She played it on a tiny recorder she kept in her bag. As the tape whirred, the candles dimmed again, and the air felt thicker, like walking through syrup. Then the door reappeared. Not fully, just an outline. "We have to leave now," I said. "Before it changes its mind." Anna hesitated. "But what about Devin?" And that's when I saw him again. Not in the mirror. In the room, standing by the desk. He looked wrong. Like a low-res version of a kid. Pixelated around the edges. His face flickered between expressions like a busted slideshow. But his eyes? Solid black, like deep ocean. And they locked onto Anna. She froze, couldn't even blink. I grabbed her arm and yanked her toward the door, which was starting to fade. "Move!" I screamed. For once, she didn't argue. We ran through the hallway, back through the vent, scraping our arms and knees again. When we got back to the main corridor, the school was pitch black, every single light out. Not even the exit signs were glowing. The front door was open, though. Just barely. We ran out into the cold night and didn't stop until we were 2 blocks away, huddled behind a dumpster, both gasping like we'd just outrun death. We didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there, numb. I finally broke the silence. He didn't follow us. Anna shook her head. He couldn't. He's tethered to the room. She looked down at her hand. She was holding something I hadn't seen before. A folded note. It hadn't been there before. She opened it slowly. In smeared ink, it read, "You're next if you forget." The next morning wasn't normal. It acted like it was birds chirping, sun out, people laughing in the courtyard. But none of it felt real. It was like the world had been reset just slightly wrong. The clocks in the hallway all showed different times. Anna's locker was filled with stuff that didn't belong to her. Old books, unfamiliar hoodies, even a pair of sneakers with Devin's initials. She looked at me like, "Did you do this?" I shook my head. No one else seemed to even notice. Every time we asked people about Devin again, their reactions were different. One kid claimed he'd heard the name before. "Wasn't he in your math class last year?" But then 5 minutes later, he denied ever saying it. Another student said Devin transferred to Canada. Someone else insisted he never existed. It was like reality had multiple save files and the game kept loading the wrong one. It made us paranoid, untrusting, even of each other. Anna started hearing things. Not whispers this time, songs. A lullaby she couldn't name, but somehow knew all the words to. It came from nowhere and followed her between classes, even into the bathroom. She recorded it once, but when she played it back, silence. No audio, just a blank file. And get this. When she tried to delete it, the file multiplied, like some cursed digital parasite. Each copy named itself after one of our classmates, including me. We went back to the library looking for anything in the archived records room, which was behind a door labeled staff only, but never locked. Inside, it was all dust and old yearbooks. We flipped through the ones from 5 years ago. Nothing. 6, 7, still nothing. Then Anna paused. "Wait," she whispered. There was a photo taped behind another photo, like it had been deliberately hidden. It was a class picture. Devin was in it, and scribbled in the margin, "Room 313 was a mistake." That was the first time either of us had heard that number. Our school didn't even have a 3rd floor, not officially. The blueprints on the school site showed only 2 floors. But when we went back, just out of curiosity, there it was. A new stairwell, not freshly built, aged, like it had always been there. Covered in the same kind of rust and mold we'd seen in the forgotten wing. We stood there, staring up, neither of us saying it out loud. We had to go. Every step up that staircase felt heavier, like gravity got stronger. Our legs ached by the 10th step. By the time we hit 20, I swear I could hear my own blood pulsing. There were no lights, just our phones. And right before we reached the top, the screen on mine glitched out. Lines and static. Then a burst of old-school dial-up noise. I turned to Anna. Her phone was doing the same. The moment we reached the top landing, our flashlights died. Room 313 had no doorknob, just a metal plate with a single red dot, glowing faintly. Anna reached out instinctively. The moment her fingers brushed it, the door hissed. Literally hissed, and cracked open a few inches. What we saw inside didn't make sense. It looked like a hospital room, but wrong. Too clean, but too old. Beds with rusted rails, monitors that were still on, and in the center, a metal chair facing the wall, occupied. The figure in the chair was strapped down. We couldn't see their face, just the back of a shaved head with wires running into it. The machines were still beeping, showing signs of life. Anna moved closer. The air stank of antiseptic and something else. Burnt hair, maybe. Is this Devin? She whispered. I moved next to her. My phone buzzed. One new file saved to it. A video. I hadn't pressed record. The title was just, "You Watched Too Long." I opened it anyway. The screen showed us standing right here, at this exact moment, but from the other side of the room. Then the camera panned, and we saw ourselves from the ceiling's point of view. There was something standing behind us, tall, inhuman, stretching from floor to ceiling like a curtain made of static. I dropped the phone. It hit the ground and turned itself off. When I looked back up, the chair was empty. The figure was gone. We need to leave, Anna said, but her voice cracked in a way I'd never heard. We turned toward the door, now fully open. Behind it wasn't the hallway. It was the classroom where Devin disappeared. And in the center, glowing faintly now, was the same sigil, still pulsing. And around it, photos. Photos of every student who'd ever forgotten Devin. Including Anna. Including me. The walls of the classroom were pulsing. Not metaphorically. Literally moving like lungs. Exhaling this low, rhythmic hum that vibrated in my skull. I blinked, and the sigil on the floor seemed to shift patterns like a kaleidoscope on acid. Anna stepped forward before I could stop her. "It's not a trap," she said, like she knew something. Like it had told her. She dropped to her knees and started tracing the shape with her fingers. "It's a memory leak," she muttered. "It's trying to overwrite the school." The photos on the wall were changing. Slowly, some faces faded. Others appeared. One moment, Anna's picture had her smiling in front of the library. The next, it showed her asleep in that hospital chair from room 313, wires trailing from her skull. I reached out to pull it off the wall and felt a sharp zap through my palm, like touching live power. When I looked down, my skin had a red print. Not a burn. A mark. The sigil. Anna began speaking in third person. Not in a creepy, possessed way. More like someone narrating something that's already happened. She entered the memory chamber. She connected too deeply. She became a redundancy. It was like her words weren't for me, but for whatever system was running this corrupted reality. I shook her, hard. Snap out of it. Her eyes blinked twice, unfocused. Then she looked at me like I was the stranger. That's when I saw the chalkboard at the front of the room start to fill in on its own. Like invisible hands were writing in chalk, line after line. Devin was real. Devin was erased. Devin is a node. Below that, reconnection requires sacrifice. I felt something cold behind me, turned, and there was Devin. Not ghostly, not monstrous. Just normal, tired, pale. Like a kid who'd been stuck in detention for too long. "Help me," he said, "before they delete you too." The air thickened with static. The lights above us started popping one by one. The sigil grew brighter and brighter, casting long shadows on the warped walls. Devin pointed to the circle. "It needs a reboot. Someone has to stay inside while the reset runs." Anna looked at me, then at him. Then she just walked into the center of the sigil and stood still, like she knew this was always her role. "Tell them I'm real," she whispered. Everything collapsed at once. Not dramatically. Digitally. Like a VR simulation getting unplugged mid-render. The room broke into pixels. The sound warped into this drowning silence. I felt myself get yanked backwards like falling into a black hole. My body ripping into fragments, but not hurting. And then, white. Blank. Cold. I blinked, woke up, in the nurse's office. Fluorescent lights above, the hum of reality returning. The nurse asked if I was okay. Said I passed out during first period. Anna? No one remembered her. Not teachers, not students. Her name wasn't in the attendance sheet anymore. Her locker was empty, but the mark on my hand, still there. Same sigil, the same pattern that now glowed faintly on my bedroom wall each night, like a low-key reminder that nothing would be normal again. Like reality had glitched and left behind a watermark. Weeks passed. I tried to go back to being normal, but the signs were everywhere. Background characters in the school halls moving in loops. Sentences repeating in conversations with friends. One time I heard my teacher give the exact same lecture 3 days in a row. Word for word. Same hand motions. When I asked her, she looked at me like I was the glitch. Like I was off script. I started finding post-it notes in my bag. In my handwriting. Stuff I didn't remember writing. Stuff like, don't talk about the sigil. Or the reboot didn't work. Or Anna is still in the loop. One time, I opened my phone to a selfie I hadn't taken. Me, in that hospital room. Chair wires. Just like Devin. Just like Anna. It had a timestamp. From next week. So yeah, this is your warning. If you're reading this, if you found this story buried in some random playlist or late-night rabbit hole, remember this. Schools aren't just buildings. They're memory farms. And sometimes something breaks inside them. A loop, a ghost, a glitch. Don't follow the sigil. Don't ask about room 313. And if you hear your name spoken in an empty hallway, don't answer.